It's another Human First AI marketing podcast. I'm your host, Mike Montague at Avenue 9. You can find us at avenue9.com, where we are helping all kinds of small and medium-sized businesses figure out how to use AI and humans at the same time in the best way possible to improve your marketing, building communities, communications, or content. That's what we do. Go to avenue9.com. My guest this week, Grant and Ryan, are co-founders of Global Entryhub. You can find them at globalentryhub.com. We'll talk more about what that is here in a second. Grant, I want to start with you. It's a very human first mission that you guys have there. And I feel like this is a cool way to use AI to make humans better rather than replace them. And we get enough of those conversations. So why did you start Global Entryhub?
Yeah, great question. And thanks, Mike. And thanks for having us on. Honestly, it's just with what's been occurring in the States recently with the tightening of immigration and quite frankly, globally, we thought we needed to do something to support folks that want to move, right? And make it accessible for everybody. A lot of folks are strapped through the financial means of it because it is a rather expensive journey. And a lot of folks just don't know because the systems are built by governments for governments, right? So there's a lot of nuanced behaviors and ideas you have to come and create on your own to figure out your path. So we thought the best solution was made it accessible to everybody, right? Not just the folks that can't afford it or the skilled laborers, right? Let's get everybody to see if they need to make a change in their life. Let's give you the best information and foot forward to do that.
Yeah, and I think, Ryan, I'll give you a swing at it too. AI is a cool application here in my mind for three reasons. One, if people just use ChatGPT to get immigration and stuff, it may hallucinate. It's probably not right. They don't know what questions to ask. All kinds of problems creep up. Also, if they speak a foreign language, most of the documents are in whatever the country's is. So AI is really great at transforming text and translation. So that's cool. And then number three, I think, is just using this in a customized way to guide the journey rather than just throw everything out there. Is that fair? Or are there other reasons you guys chose an AI solution for this?
It's fair. Yeah. AI is funny. I use the example a lot. You mentioned drift and hallucination. My kid was looking up something on the Liberty Bell from Philly. And that conversation started with the Liberty Bell, big thing with the crack in it, to the Liberty Bell BLLE, which is a steamboat on the Mississippi River. They are two very, very vastly different things, right? So we approach this as how can we, to dovetail on what Grant opened with, we wanted to create a tool that was accessible, that was easy, and that was cost effective for the majority of people, right? We're not going to pretend this information is not out there. Of course it is. You can scour the internet, you can Google information, you can go to .govs, but with AI being such a powerful tool, we're using it and harnessing it in such a way that we can bring it in their native language. Our bot speaks 7. We can guide hundreds and hundreds of journeys across the globe. But most importantly, I think it puts it into a framework that the majority of people understand. It's the easy button, if you will, for migration information.
And I'm guessing you guys have thought of this, but how long do you think it will take to have governments actually like use their own AI or automate any part of this process, right? Because whenever we hear AI for a solution, whether it's marketing or others, they're like, oh, we could just magic wand this and we'll have AI agents running all around and either rounding up illegal immigrants or doing this paperwork and getting them through faster. I don't think either really works for humans, but what's your take?
Yeah, I think we're seeing it everywhere. AI is everywhere. And then you got to think all these folks are coming on LinkedIn. If you're on there saying, I've got this bot I built that does X. Cool, but when you really peel back the onion layers and you look at vibe coders or anybody else, and I have to own I was one, and then I eventually got developers that are real to help me out with my technical limitations. But I think what you really need to look at is a lot of people, I think it's framing it correctly. You can use AI as a tool, but really what AI is, if we're going to look at it from governments using it or companies using it, it's a system. It's not just the tool. The tool will just amplify the chaos that's already in your system if you view it that way. So a lot of folks misinterpret AI and use it as, oh, I'm going to use this real quick because to Ryan's point, it is the easy button. But the back end of what that has to do is incredible. It's the how are your data lakes, how are your APIs running that, what are your scrapers doing? There's so many integral pieces that design the overall system to then get you to, here's my tool. right? So to your point, you said ChatGPT hallucinates lies. Well, absolutely, they all do. So you almost have to already be a subject matter expert before you use those large tools, because they don't have the constraints that some do, like ours, where we try and said, we're only going to focus on this one thing and we're going to make sure it's right. So if you don't do that, you have to keep a wide berth, and that leads to more of a systematic problem. So when will we see it? Whew, I think it's probably a couple of years, to be honest. Government's a little slow, maybe a decade until they catch up. Or it's going to be a lot of smaller companies that are very good at their security and very good at their data, and then maybe they'll inculcate that into their systems. But time will tell.
I often joke too, it'll happen at the speed of government, which is fast. We know that from standing in lines at DMVs, right? And look, I guess the question becomes, how important is immigration to those governments? My assumption is it's not going to float to the top of that project list for many of them. So look, I'm not clairvoyant, but I would suspect somewhere within 5 to 10 years.
Yeah, I think so too. And I'm seeing that with a lot of things. And so I wanted to talk to you about a couple of other items here. First, I want to agree with you. When you're using AI for marketing, what I found is most people don't know what good marketing looks like. So they don't know whether the output is any good or not. It sounds better than what they would have written themselves. But like you said, if you're not an expert going into it, you really can't judge the output. It's also an amplifier, which is if you have bad positioning, bad marketing, and you put it into AI, you can do more bad marketing faster, but that doesn't solve your problem. And then when we look at other tools, you guys work with the government, but for me, working with Google or Microsoft or any other giant player, I'm seeing them almost move too fast and break things or just slap AI onto stuff. And then you also have the vibe coders in marketing. They're like, we have a special blog robot. We have a special LinkedIn robot. We have a special email robot. And then if they do work, those tools get sucked into the bigger ones. And I feel like it's a really tough time to decide what a good AI project with security standards and output that actually solves a problem looks like. How do you guys decide that internally?
Ooh, that's a very good question. A good one.
I agree on that. And by the way, Mike, everything you just said, I second it. It can be a race to the bottom.
Yeah.
Now, seeing if we're not careful. And Grant, I don't know if you want to touch on how we went about doing that and guardrailing it and scaffolding it. And you can tell that story.
I think absolutely. I architected the system. Ryan's really the business guy. He knows the business better than I do. We make a great team in terms of how we come together. But when I really look at the structure, my most important thing was our aim is obviously the masses. There's 8 billion people in the world, about 300 million a year emigrate. That's a low number. And of those, how many are really, not everybody's going to the US. So it's really looking at how do I impact this, but I have to make sure my data is accurate. All it takes, especially with a constituency or your clientele, trust is immensely high. And Ryan says it all the time, and he's right. It's a very high pressure emotional thing folks are going through. So you have to double down on how do I make trust? And the only way to do that is the data has to be accurate. So when you get to that point, it's okay, I'm going to use AI to probably wrap my language around it to make sure you can understand the complex situations. But really, the data itself behind it is incredibly complex. And it is layered in scrapers. It's layered in JSON files that are dependent on data lakes. It's layered into multiple, I'll call them logic rules, but they're self-learning. So you can slap AI on it because it's a self-learning logic rule. But that's how we essentially gate it. So you can give it any prompt you want. The intent was, I don't need you to know how to prompt. What I want you to do is ask your question and get a very simple answer that's accurate. And so the intent really behind that is to say, if I'm going from Kenya to Germany, I need to understand what the form is, what forms I need. I need to understand the wait time. I need to understand what consulates I need to go to. I need to understand what security apparatuses I have to get signed by who, what, and when, all those pieces. If I'm wrong in any one of those regards, I've done nothing more than make the person more confused and angry in a situation that's already tense. And that's not appropriate.
Well, we've ruined their life.
Yeah, exactly.
Knowing it.
And God knows how long they saved to do that journey because they're not cheap.
Right.
So I think the intent is you got to look at it from a standpoint of, let's again use the example, I'm going from Kenya to Germany. I have to make sure that I didn't hallucinate. So you have to have a logic rule around that. You have to understand what the right data is from your data lakes to see if it can reference. You have to keep your data lakes updated because immigration changes all the time. So there's all these little pieces, and I won't go on too long, but there's all those integral pieces where Mira is our agent you see, but there's probably about, last time I counted, I think there were 16 sub-agents that roll through that prompt. So our biggest factor now is I'm accurate, but how latent is it? Are you willing to wait for the right information? So there's all those pieces when you build something with AI that you really need to hone in on. But I think, and I'll be quiet here, but leading question, you're talking about marketing. I think one thing that Ryan and I were talking about that we learned the hard way is that we thought, oh man, we're going to look at all these LinkedIn guys and everybody else saying we built this great tool and it does everything. We did that. We put a ton into AI marketing. Ryan was all over it. He can talk to that way more than I can, but we got nothing out of it. We were just like everybody else, right? And so, yeah, exactly. We got people to like it, but it didn't go anywhere. And then what we started to do was utilize it and then put the human at the end. And I'll let Ryan expand on that if we want to, but that's just.
Yeah, I like what you're saying. And Ryan, I'll narrow the question for you a little bit, because the build is one part, what's technically capable and making sure it's accurate and good. And I think you did a great job that a lot of people don't think about those items, from the data to the processes and the checks and what good actually looks like. But Ryan, from the business perspective, I have a client that has another AI tool as well. And I know they struggle with, in a world where you can build anything with these coding agents and stuff, scope creep is off the charts for large companies and small ones. Like, how do you decide when it's done, how many features it should have, how many languages you can add, and all of that stuff from a business perspective to make sure you're solving the right problem and you're not overcomplicating it?
Are we ever done? I don't know. I don't know. No, that's a great question. We don't know. I think we're really dependent on our audience and our clients to tell us when we're done. And right now they're clamoring for more. To dovetail on what Grant said again, we had an issue. We built a really great AI tool, and then we thought we could use AI to market the heck out of it. And we threw a bunch of money at it, bunch of money into marketing blindly, the shotgun blast. And we got some likes, we got some follows, we got very little conversion initially. And I think from a marketing standpoint, it was our biggest challenge. It still continues to be our biggest challenge. And a lot of it has to do with the space that we're in, is the trust factor. This is a highly emotional thing for people. And I'm sorry, a bot can't solve for that. A bot can't solve for human emotion. Yeah. So that is always the thing that we're wrestling with. But how do we know that we're done? We're not close to being done. And as a matter of fact, Mira is the first of a few agents that come in behind this to complete that flywheel. But I think the one thing that we've valued throughout this build is feedback, honest feedback. We've gone to NGOs, we've gone to law firms. We're not trying to put anybody out of business. We're not trying to shove anybody to the side. But if there's a competitor in this space, we know there's not right now, not doing it how we're doing it, but we'd want to have a conversation with them too. And we are just obsessive about feedback from humans. But when are we done? I don't know that we're done. Grant?
Well, I mean, no company or no marketing really is ever done. It's not baked. I just think that, I don't know, we don't have to talk about your tool even specifically. I see things like where a tool gets spun up that does customizing your email, and now they're out of business because Google just released it inside of Gmail now with Gemini. And then Copilot does the same thing. And it feels like these big companies are just like, oh, if anything works well enough to get traction, we can now throw this feature into ours for free. And they're creating these big conglomerates of agents that are,
well, look,
are a little.
Grant and I had that conversation when GPT released 5. And we're like, oh my God, did they just put us out of business? And we actually use GPT to say, hey, compare a product against what you can give. And it's different. They can actually be used hand in hand, but ours is guardrailed in a way that GPT, it's too open, right? Complexity is too open, and Anthropic's tool's too open, right? So we've really, really narrowed the scope. And I think that's what truly makes us a differentiator.
Like, that's smart for every business right now, not just in what you're doing, but it's really easy. You know, what I'm doing for marketing, you can obviously try it. You can have AI write all of your stuff and it will do it. Whether it will work or not is another question. I think it's really tricky from a sales and marketing perspective to differentiate yourself from those.
Absolutely. And I think one thing that we've noticed, depending on if you're building a product for North America, if you're building a product for global or Europe, I think one thing that people really have to identify, and we learned this the hard way early on in the build, is that when you think of the training data set that AI is on, right? Look at GPT, 60% of it was Reddit. So if you really peel back the onion layers of what these things are trained on, what you're really getting your information from, one, get educated. That's probably first and foremost, know what tool you want to use to build.
Yeah.
But I think the other piece is you also have to factor in, if you're at a global audience, what is the internet primarily, or what is GPT? It's primarily Western hemisphere biased, right? It's American values, it's European values, it's these values of what these tech companies, quite frankly, are their hubs and where they're built and the internal biases of what those are. So if you're using AI and you're trying to hit somebody in Saudi Arabia, or you're trying to hit somebody in South Africa, how on earth are you going to resonate when none of those items are technically really culturally significant to those populations? So what we noticed with marketing is we're using AI. Part of what fell flat was we're like, hey, we're going to go to the Philippines, right? Because they're smart, they're wonderful people. I've known a ton. They're great friends of mine, wonderful family values, but they're not a Western society, if you will, that's built on AI. They're their own unique society. And we have to make sure that we craft our marketing, and AI won't do that for you. So it's one of those where it'll only get you so far. And then you really got to understand exactly what you're doing. And like I said, we failed pretty hard for a while until we wrapped our minds around, oh, wait, that is the problem. So how far do I take it? And then where do I get the actual expert support I need? And I want to make sure that, at least for your listeners and everybody that's interested in this, that they take that time to really analyze that. Because if they don't, what we said earlier, more chaos.
Ryan, I want to ask you more about that too, because I think one of the temptations with AI, and I've seen all these avatars. I used to build a lot of online courses for really big companies like HubSpot and LinkedIn and stuff like that, Sandler sales training. And the temptation for them to go is, oh, this AI agent can translate this into any language. We can just make it in 27 languages and put it out there. And people in the Philippines are going to buy it because now all of a sudden we speak their language. So tell me what works and what doesn't in your experience that way. How can we use AI to be better, communicate with other cultures, but also what doesn't work in there?
What doesn't work is assuming the same message is going to work for everybody, everywhere. Talking about the Philippines, I mean, how many websites translate to Tagalog? Not many. So I think that's something that we got tremendously better at. Is I think there was an assumption of, okay, cool, we can spin the globe and send a message and it'll get out to the masses. It won't. You've really got to speak to them and their culture. And I think, again, speaking with a tremendous amount of bias here, but our product is exceptionally good at is connecting and resonating. And again, it comes back to trust. It comes back to authenticity. It comes back to how can we, and I'll use the US as an example, the temperature here around immigration is really hot. Mm-hmm. People are scared. People are being tossed into unmarked vehicles. And if we don't have a product that you can trust, we don't have a product. No, there's absolutely no conversion because for a lot of people, especially here, you're going to a website and we're asking you to set up an account to potentially feed information into, and they don't know where that's going. We're not the government. So I think for us, it is trust, it's authenticity, it's empathy, and really putting the human element behind AI. It wasn't until Grant and I, and it is not our most comfortable space, being out in the public sphere, in the public eye. I mean, I'm a pretty private person, he is too, but we had to force ourselves to get out there, talk about it, get people to understand we're not gonna come scoop you up and ship you off. Right. And that's just here. So it's a tricky thing, man. It really is a tricky thing. And I think that's the one thing that keeps me up at night is how do we continue to solve for that?
One thing, if I could, Mike, just to build on that, because I think that kind of hit a point for me. When we talk about trust, right, a lot of it is you have data compliance, GDPR, CCPA, all the pieces, it is your data. And I think in anything you're selling, when you're putting your data on the internet, how many times do we see, oh, there's a data breach? You get an email from something, hey, we had a data breach, and you go, oh, crap, right. What I had in there. Oh no, we have to do something. So when I think about all that, what was most important to us is being able to say, especially with the temperature in the US, specific to this clientele, I want front and center, delete my data. And I mean, delete it. So if you don't want to be seen, if you want to get on and get your information and then just get out like you were never here, I'd rather have that. Because the point isn't to say, let me collect your data and show investors how great it is. We're bootstrapped. I don't really want investors. So it's one of those where I don't have anybody to report to say how great I am. What I'm really looking at right now is how can I make sure that you trust that your footprint is gone so that you can get the information you need so you can feel confident. Because I think really what it is, fight or flight, it's really, I just don't understand. So the more you understand, the less scared you are, the more you're going to think about it. That's really the linchpin when I think of all products. That's what your product should do. When we put humans first, use the AI to make the human feel confident to make the decision they need to make. And I think some people are missing that on some of theirs.
Yeah, that's great.
Can't be the only thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. I want to ask you a little bit about the business model too, because I think as people have these ideas for AI, or they're going to start a company, or other people listening to this that are founders, what made you choose your target audience of the actual people trying to cross borders? Because I imagine you could have, I don't know, turned this into a nonprofit. You could have taken it to the government. You could have sold this information and other things. How did you land on that and your price point? Because I see things like where Salesforce are
Right.
still charging $100 per user per month. And I'm like, that's going down hard very
Yeah.
fast.
Yeah.
So can you talk to me a little bit about those decisions?
For sure. Look, it's hard to put a price on this. And what we understood is that our total accessible market, we understand, is somewhere north of 340 million every single year that does this legally, regardless of where it is in the world.
Mhm.
We also understand that number is probably underinflated for obvious reasons. You layer in the undocumented, that number goes up by probably another 100 million. We know it to be about 10 million here in the US, but globally that compounds. So, how do you price it? We wanted to make it affordable. Could it be a nonprofit? Could it be everything you just said it could? Yeah, it still could be. We could pivot and change the model. But we didn't want this to replace attorneys or embassies or NGOs. We wanted this to be a very economical, high value way to get a lot of information to start your journey. So the thing we tried to grapple with is how do we price it? We understand, Grant, what's the number that's still, I think 10% of that. Actually, I think it's higher than that. I think it's 20% of that still go to attorneys. Initially, the term we threw around was too cheap to ignore. We don't want that barrier of entry to be, to your point, $100 or $500 or $1,000 or whatever it is. That's just going to turn people off. That's not going to give them good information in a way that is economical for most. We're still looking at a more dynamic model of, hey, wherever you are, is it less than $5? I don't know. Probably should be. We'll get to that.
Yeah.
We did not want it to be too expensive. And we have costs of business. So
I think that's fascinating. Yeah, I think, yeah, it's really hard when people imagine, I guess SaaS has always had this, that you built the software, your costs are there, your variable costs are nothing,
You
like
reverse
make it cheap
engineer.
and free. But also the pricing you talked about, I've seen people using AI in nefarious ways now, especially this holiday season, to say, oh, we're going to do surveillance pricing. And if we know you're looking up this tool from Beverly Hills or whatever, we're going to charge you $1,000. If you're looking at it from the Philippines on a cafe Wi-Fi, it's 50 cents. I think some of that is ethical and some is not. And it's a very interesting discussion. Also, ads came to mind for me about either immigration attorneys, other people like that I'm sure would want to get into your tool. Have you gotten down that road? I'm asking you really tough questions today.
Yeah, no, it's okay. Look, I think Grant and I come at this from we're not trying to put anybody out of business, and we are open to any and all conversations. But I would initially be against immigration attorneys advertising on our site. Could we come up with a model where there are some preferred attorneys in certain areas that we could, through the agent, help guide you to? Sure. But I think, look, Grant and I were approached several times at the very beginning of this, and we had all kinds of investor money thrown at us.
I would
And
imagine.
we didn't take any of it. You know, we bootstrapped this thing, maxed out credit cards, and stayed up all night to build a product because we wanted it to be ethical. We did not necessarily want that big PE money or that VC money to influence how the product looked and felt for most people. I liken it to, I use a phrase all the time, and I can't take credit for it because I think a comedian here in the US said it, but you take a look at a politician. They could go and campaign for whatever they want to campaign for, but realistically, if you put patches on their suit of everybody they've taken money from, they look like a NASCAR driver, right?
Yeah,
That's really who their platform is for. It's not for their constituents. It's not for the people that they're talking to. It's not for the state or the county or the whatever they represent. It's the money. It's the money behind them. It's the money that's backing them. And frankly, that's why it took us a long time to be open now to investor money. And it was only going to be after it was built. And we're saying, hey, we're going to plant the flag. This is Global Entryhub. This is what it is. Now, if you'd like to come be a part of this journey and help push it, sure. But you're not going to help build it. We wanted it built the right way. We didn't want it influenced. Go ahead, Grant. Sorry, you went
Yeah,
on.
Mike, if I could, I think something that with us as the founders, under your listeners and all that. So one of the mistakes we made, and I'm very happy we fixed it, was we started to build out a founder team a little late. I wish we brought on some folks sooner than we did.
Yeah.
But one of the things that was most impactful to me, we really started this with a mission. I saw a lot of people that were scared, and I just wanted to do something to help. What can I build that can help? And then how do I make it accessible so that everybody can get the help that I think they could need? So one of our co-founders is a retired UN diplomat. He would travel all over the world, do all these other things. And one piece really resonated with me, and I wish I brought him on again like 6 months ago. But he said, if I had a tool like this in Kenya or Tanzania, my one meeting could turn into 20 meetings helping people out, because the UN can't afford 20 different diplomats in a Tanzanian war zone or conflict zone. But if you can get one person out there with a computer that can help 50 people, and you're just directing them, then we're amplifying that person's ability to make real good change for the better. And I think that's really what drives this mission forward, to say, okay, I know what that looks like. I know we have on our roadmap. We want to do a ton of things with this product in terms of just global good. That's where I believe, and I think Ryan does too, I think our whole founder team does, your mission is going to lead to your success. It's got to resonate with who you're talking to. And if anybody that just has a product that says, hey, this is great, it's going to make me a ton of money, it might, but for what and at what cost? I can go to bed every night happy because I help people.
Yeah, I think that's a great moment to start wrapping up on here, because obviously I created the show for the human first part of it, because I want AI to make humans better and not replace them, and to make our lives better and easier. So I'm wondering two questions here, and either one of you can take a swing at it. But first, you mentioned this might play out over the next 10 years. In your best guess, how do you think it plays out, or how would you like it to play out? Because we could see AI state surveillance and things that they're doing in China to make sure they know where everybody's going, and every face and every device is tracked all over. Yeah. Or we could see it in a way where, okay, all of that is, and we can prove that we're human. Then do borders and stuff really matter if super AGI comes out, or if ChatGPT becomes bigger than the American government as far as like market cap?
Mm-hmm.
How do you think it plays out?
I hope it's not how you described with Big Brother and all those things. And ChatGPT becoming bigger than the government. Altman, we love you, but let's not do that. I don't think that's a great idea. How do I hope it plays out in our space? I hope they connect with us or somebody like us, and we can insert something into the equation on a government level that makes it easier for the people that want to do it the right way. And that's always been our mission. And I say it that way because I want it amplified. That's why we have a product. I hope that if governments, not just this government, want to approach it through that lens to help people do it the right way, and this is an easier solution, great. Ideally, that's how I would love to see it play out. Will it? It's anybody's guess.
Yeah. Grant, I'll give you the fun one then, and you can speak to that one too if you want. But if you play this out like 30 years in the future, do you think we'll get to some sort of super AGI, or what sci-fi movie do you think we end up in our lifetimes here?
Yeah. So I'll start with a book I read. So I went to West Point for school, so I've got a ton of this geopolitics stuff. I'm really interested in it, the military thing. And one of the books I had to read is by this guy named Friedman. It's called The Next 100 Years. And he was basically trying to map out geopolitics for the next 100 years. He was in charge of Stratfor, a big government think tank thing. And you got to 2030, 2050, and it started to read like a sci-fi novel. And at first, it kind of turned me off, not because I'm not into sci-fi. I just thought, yeah, okay, whatever. And now I'm telling you, if any of your readers are interested, it's like a 100-page book. It's fascinating, especially now looking at what he was right on. You go, oh, there's something here. When I think 30 years out, I see folks that can afford it having augmented reality implant stuff. You're already seeing that with Neuralink and all those other pieces. I see folks that can afford it. You're going to have, I'm worried, I think that the gap for haves and have-nots increases. I think the folks that can afford it will make themselves super intelligent. That's a scary thought, especially if they're not morally straight characters. Or flip side of that, the altruistic side of me would love that doesn't happen. I would love it if you make that affordable, accessible. All these tools are easy as Meta's glasses that you put them on and say, hey, tell me about this, right? And it helps you out, or book my appointment, all that sort of it. I see life getting easier. But I also see the real concern for, I do think at some level you need the government regulation. I think at some point you need morally straight folks, but I think where it really comes down to, and Ryan said it, it's the money, right? I think right now, the biggest concern that I have, I was meeting with a New York Times reporter last week, and he said, It's hard to help a world that doesn't want to help itself. And that really stuck with me. UN Diplomats is the same thing. You kind of get with the folks that have been out there, you go, gotta kind of get it, right? But what I really kind of hone in on that, it's how do we make peace more profitable than conflict, right?
Yep.
And I think going back to our platform, I think that's where it starts. It starts with how much diversity can I inject into a system so people aren't as afraid. You lead with curiosity, little Ted Lasso, lead with curiosity. When you bake that in, you almost get this idea that I hope it's the spark that leads to people seeing that peace is more prosperous than conflict. I don't think we'll sit in our lifetime, but my hope is within the next 30 years, that's what AI starts to do. You give the common person the right access to the right information to make an informed decision, as opposed to the child soldier leader in pick country has grown up that way, and that's all they know. The more access to information, the better.
Yeah,
I think it's cool.
Grant said, and I'll put the exclamation point on it. I think chaos and conflict right now feed the algorithm.
Yeah.
So we're trying our darndest to throw something else in it and catch people's attention and hopefully change the narrative.
I think that's a really cool mission. Great thoughts there as well. And we saw this year live translation where you can be speaking English into one side of Google Meet and hearing the native language on the other side. That's
So
like
cool.
Star Trek level, like sci-fi.
Apple did it with
You
the
hear an instant.
Yeah, it's tremendous, right? It's tremendous.
In your own voice and tone. That stuff is really cool. So I hope some things like that make the world a smaller place in a good way and allow more opportunities for people that were having barriers like those, whether it's crossing borders like you guys do at Global Entryhub or language or anything else. Let's use AI in cool ways to remove some of those bottlenecks and blind spots we've had for a long time. I think that's cool. The website is globalentryhub.com. We've been talking with Grant Frazier and Ryan Bradley, co-founders of the tool there as well. I'll give you one last swing at it. You can pick who goes. How can you help us? How can we help you?
Grant?
Honestly, I would love nothing more than just come to our site, give us feedback, give it a try, right? The more we know that you think that could fix, the better. I think we're looking for partners in our journey, and it doesn't have to be monetary. It can just be, hey, I know somebody that's going through it. Let's see if this tool helps. We give a free trial. We're not asking for money, at least not at that point. We just want to make sure it's successful. I think that would be my ask. How we can help you guys is my hope is as folks look for talent, it expands a global talent pool that you might not have had access to for a small business or a medium business owner. Figuring out how we get 1099s involved. Where can I find this support? If it can't be an H-1B based off of what is in the States, when you're talking about skilled labor, what's another way we can help you out and help your business out?
Yep.
Awesome. Again, go to globalentryhub.com. It's a multilingual immigration journey assistant that these guys built and a really cool opportunity. And if you're looking to grow a similar business like this, connect with a community, tell a cool story. I feel like small businesses in marketing can really punch above their weight, that there's a leveling of the playing field with AI, which we don't know how long it will last. But the reason I started Avenue 9 is I want to help small businesses really make some cool stuff while we have an opportunity to compete. And honestly, some large businesses are going to move slower than small business can. So you can even get an advantage over those things. If that sounds like fun, go to avenue9.com. Until next time, have fun. Keep going.